Okay, hi. Today we are going to do something a little more fun. So we've had lots of serious webinars talking about our finances, our health, mentally and physically, and company culture. And today I'm really excited that we have two really awesome guys with us, and they're both good friends of our community. So John Kent is from Nicholas Pearce Wines. He's up in the corner there, and Greg Bourolias is also with us, and he is at the bottom of your screen. He is from Burger Drops. So I'm going to let each of you kind of introduce yourselves to everybody. So Greg, I don't know if you want to go ahead first.
Sure, of course. Hi, everyone. Hello. Thank you for this this opportunity. It's super fun. John, first time meeting you. Lovely meeting you. In short, who I am, I've been in the restaurant industry for quite some time. Almost to say I was kind of grandfathered in. My father owned a bunch of restaurants growing up, seeing that kind of side of diners and old school Greek restaurants, going from 50 seats to 150 seats and super busy back in the 90s and the glory days, as I call them. And I started in the dish pit, working for $20 a day and a couple of ice cream scoops as well to kind of incentivize me to come back the next day. And after that, I got into actually front of the house. So I was serving, I was bussing, and not until about recently, about 4 or 5 years ago, I got into cooking professionally. Calling for me, it really made the most sense in terms of how I was willing to express myself and my glass ceiling to be able to push who I was. And once I did that, I was lucky enough to join the Aloe Food Group, which I'm sure most of us know in Ontario and in Canada, actually, for that matter. And I held sous chef position for about 2 years at Alouette. And I started what is now called Burger Drops. And Burger Drops is a mobile classic smash burger pop-up, primarily focusing inside of Toronto. And we do these pop-up events where we'll have burgers and beers and some desserts and music. And it's more of a holistic vibe of what I would imagine the ideal American burger experience to be. And so here we are, fast forward 2 years later. I left from the company with nothing but love and pats in the back, and here I am now pursuing my my burger dream. And so this time with the pandemic and everything that's happening in the world has been an interesting ride to be able to manage both the emotional and psychological pressure of what's to come. So I'm optimistic with everything. It was a rough ride, but as you may know, John, our industry is taking a little bit of a hit, and so we're really trying to come together in forms like this to make sure we're talking about positivity and moving forward. So thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being on. And yeah, we got John from the wine community because, Greg, you might not know this, but out of anybody who I know, John is the biggest burger enthusiast.
Yeah. Oh man, this is going to be terrible for you, John. This is the worst. To be able to just wave it in your face.
Got my two vices of stuff to take it out on the wine.
I love that.
So John, we got is from Nick Pearce Wines. So I don't know if you want to tell us a little bit more about yourself and your background, and then we'll let you take it.
Sure. My name's John Kent, and I work for Nicholas Pearce Wines. I've worked in wine on and off for over 10 years and in hospitality. Going back, sort of a similar story to starting in the dish pit at a restaurant in high school and sort of working my way through university in different positions, up serving and bartending until I had a big wine agency in Toronto sort of take a chance on me, and they got me into the program called the Wine and Spirit Education Trust, where I did my different levels for wine and did a lot of traveling around the world. And I got out of wine briefly for a little bit and then back into it. And the company I work for, Nicholas Pearce Wines, is an importing agency. So primarily what we do is find wineries around the world that are sort of akin to the same sort of vibe that we are looking for in terms of having sort of high quality family owned operations, and we represent their wines in Ontario. So what that means is we import them into the warehousing system for the province, and then we sell them to restaurants, and we sell them to private consumers such as yourselves. And sometimes we do it for wine clubs as well, which is something that Andrea and I are talking about trying to potentially implement going forward, maybe with the Workplace One community. We've just got to iron out a few details, but that's something for people to look forward to. Awesome. I'll just sort of say, just so people sort of understand a little more about what our agency does. There are different agencies that do different things, and there are agencies that just sort of look for huge suppliers that can sort of mass produce huge amounts of wine, and maybe the quality isn't quite as high, and you'll see things in their practices that you wouldn't necessarily in the type of wines that we represent, things like machine harvesting and just the way grapes are handled in general. But I don't want to bore anybody by getting into too much detail with it. I just want to sort of explain that what we do is sort of look for more artisanal, boutique style winemaking. And just because I am going to use one local wine as well, in addition to the importing, we also do some representation for some local Ontario wineries. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Anyway, sorry for going on so long.
That's awesome. Great.
No, that's great. And that's why we really got both of you involved in this. Is you guys are both really representing, quality over quantity, so to speak, and very much working for locally based companies. So that's awesome. So we'll get it started. It's going to be really hard to watch your demonstration, Greg, and not get to eat a burger.
I'm sorry, but I did it.
We'll make
tonight, for sure.
So yeah, Greg, we'll let you take it, and if you want to give us a little bit of a demonstration as to how we could maybe try and create this in our own homes or backyards.
Okay. Yeah, and I think that's a great piece, because it's really important to remember that burgers are very approachable to create. There is not one burger that is necessarily extremely better than the other. I particularly love the smash burger. It brings respect to texture, flavor, that pinnacle crust that you create when you smash down, and you'll see in a moment, is kind of like what started it all for me, and that flavor profile that it gives is kind of the ideal representation of what I would imagine something in between a potato roll or a white bun. So let's get to it. Stop me or interrupt me if you can't hear me or see something, or if you have questions, of course, but this is my makeshift kitchen in my lovely garage here. All right, so in short, we have what we refer to as mise en place, or our vegetables and or products that are prepared for our finished product, which is now going to be the smash burger. I'm going to prepare for you a classic American burger, iteration of my classic American burger, which consists of 2 smash patties. So I love double cheeseburgers, very nostalgic to me growing up. I would imagine the most ideal, the first McDonald's burger back in the day, double cheeseburger, OG burger is, that to me is, I would imagine the most ideal form of a burger, what it should be. And growing up, I actually was eating charbroiled burgers with my dad, on back streets, and this place called Johnny's Hamburgers in Scarborough, and they had this really, really amazing double cheeseburger. And so I'm kind of trying to draw the nostalgia from that. So in my hand, I have 2 2.5 ounce balls of 100% chuck beef. That's the chuck roll there is a lot of activity on that part of the animal, and so you're going to get a lot of meatiness coming from that flavor profile. The biggest thing with chuck is that it offers a very soundproof flavor profile of what you would imagine beef to taste like. And so that's why it's the most ideal form to use. For me, I'm not interested in using the best ingredients. I'm interested in using great ingredients and the ingredients that actually caters to what I'm trying to attain. So chuck beef is what I use. I sometimes will play around with brisket or short rib for more of a fat complexity. But in this case, I'm gonna do chuck. I have super minced, chopped up Vidalia onions, which offer a nice, sweet, pleasant acidity. Cutting them up this small allows for a little bit of that crunch, but a delivery that is much more widespread and even throughout the mouth. I make my own pickles from English cucumbers. This is kind of the pièce de résistance. The lovely crinkle cut slice is super pinnacle. They offer a very peppery, spicy element to the burger itself. And lastly, for the bun and the cheese, I use good old American cheese. Melts beautifully, tastes the best. Yeah, I see John nodding his head. So, and then to finish, it all sits on this beautiful Martin's potato roll. The potato roll is particularly really amazing. One, because of course, the ode to Shake Shack. But it's really lovely when it reacts to heat. It kind of keeps its form. It creates a nice sear. It doesn't get soggy. It holds well, which is very big as well for me. My hands are kind of large for a guy's hands, but it sits very nicely in the hand. I don't like massive burgers where they're kind of super messy. For me, a burger should be 5 to 6, maybe 7 bites at most. And a single element in the burger itself should be from start to finish in every bite. So I'm going to begin first by toasting my bun. The Martin's rolls come hinged. I'm going to separate them and I'm going to just sandwich it on top. Now, for anybody using or doing this at home, please make sure that you're not necessarily overwhelming yourself with what kind of bun you use. Just make sure it's small, a white roll or any kind of flour is nice, but super squishy and fresh. I like to toast my buns with a little bit of butter. So I have a little bit of clarified butter here. I'm gonna give it a nice little toast.
Greg,
Yeah, go ahead.
But I'm just wondering, why do you use, like, you're using a flat top, which I know is like, used in diners and stuff a lot, but
yes.
Why do you choose to do a flat top as opposed to like a grill? Like, what are some of the differences in terms of how it's going to maybe make it taste or?
Yeah. So that quintessential sear, that smash sear that everybody looks for in a smash burger is kind of the only way you can actually attain that. It's a nice little color there. The only way you can kind of attain that is on a flat griddle, particularly cast iron. Cast iron really understands residual heat, and for me, maintaining heat, residual heat is the biggest thing. Cast iron doesn't warp if you treat it very well. It has to be clean, seasoned, oily, super nice. And in this case, I'm averaging anywhere between 500 to maybe 510 degrees Fahrenheit for the burger I'm about to smash. With regards to the bun, don't toast at a high temperature, but the ideal form with the griddle is not losing juices, incurring a crust, and being able to manipulate the burger in any way you want, sliding it between temperatures. So that's kind of like the 3 fundamental reasons why I use, or most people use, griddles for smash burgers or burgers in general.
If we're making it at home, and I don't have a fancy griddle like you do, so if I want to make it, am I going to use, like I have a really good big cast iron pan. Yeah,
that's perfect. So
do I have it on high? Would I have it on medium? How do I know when it's ready to?
Most stovetops will probably go from 0 or low to high, or from 0 to 10. I would hang in around the 9 and 10 area. You want to open your windows, you want to get the fan going, but in order for you to actually attain that real sear, you want beef to be reasonably cold, so that when it hits the hot surface, it's not steaming it, it's searing the outside and maintaining the juices on the inside. So that's why really, really high heat is super important. And yes, to answer your question, a cast iron skillet, lodge or what have you, ideal. I do them a lot in house. Just my girlfriend hates me whenever I smoke at the house, so I hang out in the garage when I do these things. All right, so I'm gonna begin. Can I go? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, go for it.
All right, let's go. So on my other side of the grill here, she's pretty hot. So as you can see, with regards to the searing element, you want the searing to be really, really fast paced. So if you can imagine like the tempo, you want that to be really, really, really high. That indicates to you that the grill is hot if you don't have a fancy thermometer like this. But I'm reading at about 520 right now, 530. So I'm gonna bring it down. So remember that when you're actually smashing and you see the smoke, white smoke is not necessarily ideal, but clear smoke, AKA steam or heat evaporation, is nice. So what I do is I take a nice heavy set spatula. I use a spatula. I'll talk about different types of smashers later, but I go nice and center. I push down evenly. I use another scraper or another tool to just press down nice and even. Once I see the meat kind of come out to the edges, I pull away. I like to use another tool just so I can scrape away and keep down the beef from sticking to my spatula. Now, what you can do is you can put a piece of parchment in between the beef and the actual press itself so it doesn't stick fully. But this is the way that I do it, and I'm most comfortable with doing it because I can feel the entire experience myself. Now, immediately with beef, with any kind of meat hitting a hot surface, you want to season. I have a little bit of a blend of salt and pepper. It's more salt than it is pepper. So treating it exactly like a steak, I want to season generously. This is the only element of seasoning that I'm giving to it. A lot of people love to put steakhouse blends on their beef or on their burgers. I'm okay with that. However, the nostalgia and the premise of this burger does not mean that for me. And so I stick to salt and pepper. So while this is going, I'm going to quickly season, or rather put my special mayo on the bottom bun and a little bit on the top bun of my little buns here. Special mayo, everybody has their own special mayo, but for mine, it's very simple. Onion powder, garlic powder, cayenne, mayo base, some other spices. But essentially it's something that you want to be rich with a little bit of smoky flavor. Some people like to do smoked paprika or paprika, but just really focus on it having a bit of a to it and that fat element, that fat delivery. Because the only fat pieces to this is pretty much the cheese and the mayo. So coming back to the beef here, as you can see, there's holes that tend to kind of open up as the beef starts to render out. I'm cooking it 85% on one side and only 15 to 20% on the other side. The sides start to kind of pop up. For me, it's really about cookery. I don't necessarily want to cook this thing to, super, super well done and crispy.
Right.
I want to just really focus on the texture element and then making sure that the beef itself is cooked. This is not going to be a mid-rare burger. This is going to be, there's that quintessential sear.
That's so good.
This is going to be a burger that obviously is not one for a chef that says, "Oh, my meat should be medium, mid-rare." No, this is all American classics here. So I go directly on top with my burger or with my cheese. Those holes that are in there are super ideal because they actually act as steam pockets and start melting the cheese ever so slightly. I don't want to melt the cheese too much on the grill. I want the residual heat of the beef itself to finish melting the cheese. And so I'm almost ready to go. Now, when it comes to my toppings,
you don't do the thing where you steam it with the...
No, I mean, I like that method only if there is a drastic amount of product on the burger itself. Yeah. However, with American cheese, it's so amazing texturally that when it does melt, it still stays together and it continues to melt. things
What
like
what makes it do that? What makes it an American cheese do that? It's so
yeah,
good.
so yeah, they call them there's milk-based product or powder or
Right.
stabilizers that are
Right.
inside of the cheese itself.
Yeah.
It is 50% cheese, but
Yeah.
the other 50 are all stabilizers like
Yeah.
nitrates and things
For
like that
sure.
actually go into even cheddar cheeses or
Yeah.
even cured meats that people use. So it's not necessarily bad for you. It's just more so they use more ratio of that so that they can stabilize the cheese and keep it together.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay,
Um,
Greg, there's a question. I'm going to ask a question. People,
Yeah,
if
please.
you're watching and has a question, you can type it in and we'll try to address it. So there's
Great.
one question which, yeah, she's asking, why don't you season your burger? That looks so good.
Oh my God.
John, I'm sorry, man. I'm so sorry.
Why don't you season before you cook it? So like a lot of times you see like homemade burger recipes and people are like, it's like add the salt, add the this.
Yeah.
Throw it on the grill.
Yeah, so that's a great question, actually. Whoever asked that, a very responsible question.
One of our community managers.
Amazing. So when you season beef or meat beforehand, salt, sugar, acid, these are all curing agents. And so for me, because the size of beef is so small, I don't want to season the beef too early because it'll draw out the moisture, aka keef itself. And so I want to season it as fast as I'm cooking it so that I'm incurring that seasoned flavor, but I'm not drawing out any moisture. I'm actually doing the opposite. I'm sealing moisture inside. And so as you can see, the searing is one thing, but the level of juiciness is another thing. And so it's really, really important to remember that when you're fast cooking, this is referred to as fast cooking, salt needs to be applied as fast as the cooking process. And so if I'm cooking a thick piece of steak or 40 ounce or 60 ounce piece of steak, putting a little bit of salt on it or seasoning it beforehand is ideal because it draws a little bit of the moisture and it focuses the flavor to the center of the meat. Whereas for this, quick seasoning, ideal. Okay. So to finish off the burger, I like a lot of acid. So salt, fat, acid. We all saw that show on Netflix, which changed my life. I like to do a ton of pickles. Most people at my events and for my orders, I do about 3 pickles, 3 to 4. I go anywhere between 4 to 5. And then I take a beautiful helping hand of our sweet minced onion and I layer it through. Now, as you can see, I'm paying attention to the fact that every single bite has a piece of onion.
And has a piece of Vidalia onion, you said?
That is thinly chopped Vidalia onion. You can do it in a food processor, Robocoup, whatever you like, by hand. It's totally fine. Okay.
Oh, I want to be there.
Yeah, that looks really, really good.
And there you have it.
That's the dream.
Double smash burger drops. There it is.
Okay, and then the other question is, so when you're going to the butcher,
yes, great.
To the grocery store. So ideally, you're getting it from the butcher, but
yes,
some people right now, because you're just trying to reduce the amount of trips you're taking and you're just getting it at the grocery store.
Yes.
What are we asking for? So you said it's ground chuck, but like
yes. Yes, great question. So you're asking about fat content. So for me, there's 2 real things that matter the most when it comes to ground beef for burgers. It's one, fat content, which should be anywhere between 15 to 20%, preferably 20% of fat content minimum. And the beef should be fresh. And so it should have that bright red color to it. It should almost look like pureed strawberries. So specks of white of fat, 20% fat and 80% lean beef. Prime chuck, which is great. Most grocery stores will use chuck roll, top sirloin, even some trim of like steak and stuff if you go to like higher end grocery stores. But if you're gonna walk into your regular grocery store, which is okay, I would pay attention and look for medium ground beef. Don't go for the extra leans and leans. Those hang around anywhere between 10% of fat, which are, good for different things when you're used to it, like breadcrumbs and dairy and all that kind of stuff. But for a burger that kind of lives on its own to be represented as a burger, you need at least 20% fat. So medium ground beef is ideal.
Right. Okay, cool. Oh, that looks awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. So that's the burger, guys.
Thanks.
John, I'm sorry, but I owe you one, man. I owe you one. Let me show you that again.
Oh my God.
Okay, so John, I'm gonna let you take it. So you're gonna give us some great wines that we could maybe pair with such a delicious burger. I know people often think it's like beer, like have a cold
John, we should do a collab event, John. We should like.
Oh yeah, we are.
That'd be
We're
crazy.
doing it for sure.
In the summer, we'll do it in the summer. We'll host a really
man.
awesome event. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Love it.
No, yeah. Excuse me. Sorry. Wines. It does get a little bit overlooked in barbecue for sure, or just sort of general comfort foods. But so often it's such a good match. I don't know Andrea, would you think I should get into just a little bit of how to generally taste?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, sure. Okay, so sure. I'll start out just sort of saying a little bit about pairing for burgers, for example. With I sort of did a little bit of research on Greg and what that burger might potentially involve. So I've sort of chosen two different directions that you can go in deciding on what type of wine you would want to have with a burger like that. Typically, awesome. You're going to be drinking red wine. And because you have a big meaty situation happening, you're going to want to have something medium bodied or to full bodied in terms of red, which you could be going to a lot of different places around the world to have wine, and you could use a lot of different varietals. Another direction, the second direction you can go, is for something that's just great to drink during the day, having a cookout with your buddies. And it's a little less traditional in terms of
Andrea likes that one. Andrea likes that one.
Yeah, well, and I know she loves this wine too, so she'll be into it. But that's another direction you can go is rosé, and that'll still, as long as it's there's a couple of different kinds of rosé, and Ontario is just sort of finally now catching up to the rest of the world in terms of realizing that rosé isn't all just the California style, New World sweet, like white Zinfandel style rosé. Old World or Provençal style rosé is drier and crisper with great acidity, and rosé like that can be an excellent match for something like if you're having a cookout and having burgers.
Brilliant.
So,
question for you.
Sure.
Do you recommend? And I know beer, whatever, but it's kind of like a match made in heaven. But
sure.
I actually once thought about the idea of essence, so like wines that have bubbles. Would you recommend, a sparkling rosé or a more just any kind of wine that really has some sort of a bubble or carbonation influence to it to help with the fattiness of a burger? Is that something that's unreal?
I'm gonna get my wife to grab one from you here. That is absolutely a great option. My favorite wines to drink are sparkling wines, and they are. Sparkling wine works with everything. I just made an Instagram post about this last night because I was drinking this, which is from our agency, Nicholas Pearce. So Nick makes this wine in conjunction with Niagara winemakers. It's our Ward 5 Brut, and it would be an amazing match with burgers.
Amazing.
But what you were saying too, sparkling rosé also would be fantastic. For this situation, I was just trying to sort of keep it to two, just to not make it too complex. But absolutely, sparkling is always a good idea. I'm always encouraging people to get away from the notion that it's some sort of celebration wine, because it is just such a great match with so many different types of food. So always think about that. It's always a great idea to have some
good to know
sparkling or some sparkling rosé on hand.
You guys are really describing like the perfect gentleman's barbecue. Start with a little sparkling.
Absolutely.
Do some rosé, and then we'll crack open a bottle of bread.
Totally.
It sounds like the ideal environment for the patio at Peter Street.
This collaboration is already coming together. We're gonna have it all figured out by the end of this.
Oh man, Toronto's not ready.
Yeah, no doubt. So I'm gonna start talking first about this winery, Leaning Post. I had mentioned to you guys that in addition to importing, Nicholas Pearce Wines also does some representation for local Ontario-based wineries. So the Leaning Post Rosé is Leaning Post's #1 selling wine. For those of you who don't know Leaning Post, it is right at the northern part, like the top end of the Niagara wine region, just off the 50 road. For those of you who are familiar, when you're going down the QEW Niagara. And Ilya Senchuk is the winemaker there. He was a winemaker at Foreign Affair previously, started this little boutique winery with his wife. Their wines are excellent, and they really just sort of focus on what we do best in Ontario, sort of Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, cooler climate grapes, and this rosé is fantastic. They have other Riesling, Sauvignon Blanc, and other varieties that they do as well, but the rosé was the one I chose for the burger today. And
amazing.
And if you haven't been there, you should go there. And people throw around that word boutique a lot when they're talking about wineries or different places, but this is truly like boutique artisanal winemaking. It's a barn on the side of the road behind their house, and what they're doing in there is pretty amazing. So if you want to support super cool local winery, get down there. Should I sort of taste through it, Andrea?
Yeah.
All right.
This is a great idea, but this sucks, Andrea. This is like this virtual thing is it's hurting my heart.
You want to taste that? No. Okay.
He's opening a wine. I'm smashing burgers.
I'm just saying, you're alone in a kitchen with no food. I come out at the bottom.
So I'll just do quick little sort of 4 general points for tasting. The first is to look at the wine, and you can see that's got the sort of vibrant, not overly extracted rosé color there. But that's the first step of tasting, is to sort of give it a look, and you can identify a lot of different things about color and even things to do with age of wine. And then you give it a swirl and give it a nose. And this is really well made rosé. So you're getting a little bit of red fruit, but a little minerality. And then the third part is the taste.
I hate you.
Oh, delightful. And you can feel the acidity on the sides of your tongue. It's a great quality rosé. And then the fourth step I always say is after tasting is to sort of think about it, talk about it with your friends. And, the one thing I always try to say is that when you're tasting is to think about if it's tastes the way that it should, if it's representative of where it comes from. And because a lot of people think they're tasting to see whether or not they like it or it fits their set of criteria for what they think a good wine is, when really a great wine is a great expression of where that wine is farmed.
Now, that's an interesting piece, because when I find that eat when I eat, say on a scale of 1 to 10, if what I'm consuming in terms of food is anywhere between 8 to 9 in salt content, or just generally food that is favorably more salty, you know, like a really good steak dinner, or something as casual as a burger or fried chicken, when salt content is a little bit higher on the savory scale, is a wine that is more acidic more appropriate, or a wine that is more drier more appropriate when it comes to that? Am I going to want something that is higher in acidity when I'm enjoying a meal that is much more savory and rich and delicious, or do I want something a little bit more, you know, towards how intense it is in itself? Like, where do you go with that?
I like the approach of the acidity. I think that for rich and high content things, that having high acid wine is a great idea. And you can have dry high acid wines. But acidity is something I'm always looking for.
Me too. Yeah. Even in food.
For sure. Yeah, no, I could tell. We have very similar tastes. I could just tell by the way that burger was dressed, and the onion and the pickle. I think that's what you're always looking for, is that balance. You know, there's so many similarities with wine and food, and that's why they go together so well.
That's awesome. Sorry, Andrea, we're having a moment.
Yeah.
Perfect. That's great.
I just realized I haven't opened this one yet. The second wine.
What's the next one? I'm so excited. Let's go.
Yeah, so I'm gonna do it's an Italian red from Montalcino is the area, which is where Brunello comes from. It's something some people might be familiar with. This is from our Brunello producer. This and then obviously Brunello is very expensive and something that you might not necessarily think about having when you're barbecuing. This is their entry-level wine. So all these wines come in around the $20 price point, just so you guys know for reference. But
that's great.
You should never be afraid to drink great wine when you're having even like simple or more comfort style food. There was a guy I used to work with, and he used to always say that one good thing to think about is having simple wine with great food and great wine with simple food. And that's something that I've always remembered and always tried to sort of adhere to, and it works really well. I've had some of the best bottles of wine that I had with my wife is just with us making pizzas at our house. Anyways, again,
I love that.
Yeah. And this would be sort of a full-bodied red, which would be your more traditional
ooh, look at that.
deep red. And this would be your more traditional pairing with the burger. Obviously, I'm trying to keep all this as simple as possible because I could nerd out hard, but if anybody has any questions or anything, by all means, feel free to contact me or reach out through Andrea. But those are a couple different options for burgers. I wish I had one so badly right now. And
oh man, it's gonna be so good. The party we're gonna have.
Oh, it's gonna be amazing. Go through the what, honey? Yeah, we did. Oh, look at that. Looks so good in its little envelope home.
So this new wine actually looks like something that could be more responsible with, or more widespread with something as salty and beefy as a burger.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. You would have, so same thing. It's got a deeper sort of red appearance, sort of garnet on the edge. And then same sort of red fruit. There's some tertiary notes there, like some a little bit of sort of leatheriness.
Love it. I love
Same
that.
sort of minerality, really well structured, well balanced. And then on the palate, super juicy.
And
Yeah.
can you tell us, so here's going to be like my, you know, equivalent to the, you know, if I'm at the grocery store, but like people can order these wines, you deliver them to people.
Yes, that's
So
correct. We do.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to say, we sort of in the same way, what sort of Greg was talking about earlier. We've always, as wine agents in Ontario, sold wine to private clients. We don't just sell to licensees and restaurants or hotels or whatever. But that was maybe, you know, a small percentage of what we did until our current situation, where we've had to sort of do a complete pivot and really focus on marketing to the private clients or regular people who we probably overlooked a little more than we should have previously. So yeah, if you're looking to avoid those long lines and crowds at the LCBO, you can order directly from us and we deliver, especially if you're in the GTA, there's deliveries a few times a week. And
how does that work for you guys? Do you guys have minimums? Or am I able to order, you know, 4 or 5 bottles for just a month? Like, what does that look like logistically?
Right now, there are a couple of different ways. Traditionally, the only way you were able to do it was to order a full case of a single product.
I see.
Which is 12 bottles, or in some case 6.
Okay.
And we also work with another online organization called Wine Align. And
yes,
Wine Align is they're selling mixed cases. So it'll be a 12-bottle case that's all different bottles. If you reach out to a representative like myself specifically, there are a lot of different options available that haven't traditionally been available. I don't want to say too much more of it because it's not exactly legal. But these are
would you recommend Wine Align? Yeah.
Yeah, Wine Align's great, or reach out to the agency and they can sort of give you some direction. We're at our website, mpwines.com, you could shop right on the website.
Right.
Yeah, my Instagram is at Johnny Good Times. You can always go on there because I've got lots of different posts to sort of set things up for you as well. You can just direct message me on there.
There's a lot of things going around right now. Like my initial question was going to be, you know, if I'm not able to order from you, or if I haven't planned it out and I don't have a 6-pack that's supposed to be arriving later today.
I don't know if you heard my doorbell in the middle of that, but that was a bunch of wine getting delivered to me.
But so if you haven't prepared and you're like kind of flying into the LCBO to grab some things. So you talked about Brunello a little bit like that, but so if we're kind of looking, you said a lot of the ones that you were trying today and talking about were in around the $20 price point. Mm-hmm. So yeah, so if I didn't have an order from you coming or something like that, and I was just going to go into the LCBO and I wanted to get something maybe comparable,
sure.
What maybe varietals would I be looking for? Would it be a blend of a few, or like what would be some direction on navigating like the vintages section? And I'm looking to stick to, roughly $20 a bottle.
Yep, there's lots of different ways you can go. I think there's a lot of value in old world wines. So like that is Italian, and the variety, sorry, I didn't even say that. The variety of the Leonis, the red that I did, is Sangiovese, which I think is a great mix. So that's a variety. You could always ask the product consultant about in vintages. Cabernet Sauvignon obviously is a full-bodied red varietal. And they obviously, do that very well in California, Bordeaux. A lot of people like drinking Shiraz as a full-bodied variety that a lot of people like when they're barbecuing, or having some sort of cookout like that, or full body, or red meats in general. And Zinfandel as well is one that a lot of people like to do for full-bodied reds.
Do you recommend hanging around in the vintages section when you're looking for something so approachable like the wines that you showed us, or do you recommend talking to somebody at the LCBO if, say, I wanted just a single bottle and I didn't want to commit to 3 or 4 or 5? What would be the responsible approach? Because I feel like a lot of people outside of the industry seem a little intimidated when going inside of an LCBO, and they feel responsible, like they need to get something that's expensive, or they feel that they need to get something that's really nice, or what is your approach with that? Like, do you think of wine in the sense that higher the price, better the wine, or is that completely not the way you should be thinking about it?
No, I think that that there's always great values to be found. And I think a number of years ago, the LCBO really started focusing on that because I think that they had determined that their shoppers, that their customers were really generally looking for great values at or around the $20 price point. What I do always say is, if you're willing to go a little bit beyond that, you open yourself up to a completely different world of options in terms
of heard that before.
Yeah, in terms of quality, and just do it from time to time. I mean, I get it too. Like, I always try to sort of stick to the same thing everybody else does of those around $20 price points. But if you get a little bit above that into the mid to higher 20s in that vintages section, you will have a lot of it's sort of the amount of quality that is added for that small increase in price is pretty vast. And then again, the person to talk to, if you ever see the person with the white shirt on, that's the product consultant at the LCBO. And they are generally, I find that they're always willing to, they're the people who are way more interested in their job and the products. So I always find them to be the most
guy.
Yeah. But I think what's really cool about getting something from you directly, or like an agency like you directly, is it's cool because, as you said, you're representing a lot of like small batch, producers who have probably been hit a bit by this, right? Like it's all down. So it's kind of, I think people are really it's hard. We talked about this in our one where we were speaking about financial planning and how, you're trying to cut back on some of your expenses a bit, but you're also still, it's emotional because you have like small businesses that you want to support, and maybe you can't right now, or they're trying different ways to still have a stream of income to keep their business alive. So this is a really cool way, I think, that people, if you are trying to avoid stores in the LCBO, this is a cool way you can get some amazing stuff that's been selected by people who know a lot, like yourself, and it's a way to support sort of the sort of smaller guys who maybe are struggling a bit more right now. And it's a great program. So that's cool. Hopefully we can bring it to some members soon.
Yeah, can I get in on that too? Because I need some more info in my life, man. I need a John Kent in my life.
Yeah, you got it.
Well, we're going on 45 minutes, which was so much fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
That 6-pack is waiting for you.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I'll be there soon.
I've ordered one from John if people haven't picked up on that. So thanks both of you for being on today. You were a lot of fun, and I think Craig, we're gonna have a lot of people trying to recreate that burger. That's awesome. And it seems like we've planned the first event that we can host when everybody's back to sort of, businesses.
Celebratory mode,
new normal, I guess. We've got a great event in the works already. So it would be a good time. So thanks everyone.
I want to thank you.
Yeah.
I want to thank you for the opportunity. John, it was amazing to be able to hear from you as an expert professional. If anybody does want to ask us any questions directly, the primary source of communication is our Instagram page at Burger Drops, all one word. And we're actually looking at doing delivery and pickup in the near future. So if anybody that's interested in supporting small businesses, I may talk to John, see if we can sell a couple bottles of wine simultaneously in the maybe we can do like a little 4-pack or 6-pack of burgers and a bottle of wine. That'd be cool. Hey, John?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, that's great.
That'd be cool.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everyone. And
Yeah, thanks, Andrea. Thanks, Greg.
John, pleasure. Thank you, Andrea. See you guys.
Bye.
All right.